All right, good morning, everybody. I wanted to talk about a personal experience I've had. A lot of folks know that for a long time, I've been a big fan of The Simpsons. And I've stuck with The Simpsons through thick and thin, more or less. I think there are a few episodes from season 10 that I never saw. I couldn't catch up with them, now that there's Simpsons World. That's when I was in Jerusalem, in the Holy Land, and I didn't have TV. And I've seen a lot of them in reruns, but I think there's a lot that I never saw from that year, which is like 2001, 2002, that time. But are they going to let me through onto 17? So, now I don't have regular television access. I just have the internet, so I'll watch Simpsons still on Hulu, and that's like, I kind of had like an attrition system to try to wean myself off of television. I said, I'm not going to start watching any new shows, so I didn't get into a show like, say, The Big Bang Theory. Haven't seen this new Young Sheldon, which looks like maybe something I would enjoy, but my feeling is that most likely I won't. If I would have stayed watching television consistently through the years, that probably would have been the type of show I would have been interested in. But it's just so different. The TV scene is just so different. So, I watch once in a while just to relax some old shows. And when the new Mystery Science Theater 3000 came out, I watched a bunch of the episodes, and my feeling was this is just a continuation of something old. Same thing, Fuller House. But both of those, I'll be honest, I couldn't watch every episode. I couldn't, I guess I developed a certain sensitivity to things that it wasn't the same. And then the thing is also, I go back and watch some of these old shows I used to watch when I was a kid. I was like, did I really watch this? Third Rock from the Sun, I tried to watch. I was like, oh, this, I just remember, Third Rock from the Sun, oh, that's a funny show about aliens, maybe it's something I could watch with my kids. And I was like, oh no, I cannot watch this with my kids, Maybe I'll watch it myself, and even that, I'm really uncomfortable. I was like, and this was like 20 years ago. I'm like, look at how society has just gone down and down, and really the beginnings of that were coming out then, really even from the 70s, is when the media started to really, in the 60s, 70s, things really started to go away from traditional ways. I mean, I know that there were aspects of the culture in the 60s. Although it's interesting, The Simpsons called the 60s a shrill and pointless decade. So, and yet, we see so much of the change in society that came about from there. And, things that were a long time ago were subcultures have become part of the main culture today, and how fast things change. Although the thing is, to me, I remember when the 90s started, it was like, that's a big deal. This is a new decade. And I remember when 2000, that was a big deal. 2010, I didn't feel like a big deal. I don't know if I'm going to feel a big deal 2020. We're going into the 20s. Like, and the interesting thing is also, I mean, the aughts and the 1910s, the teens. Also, with the exception of World War One in the 19-teens, we don't see the marked differences like I guess, to a certain extent. Like, I don't know that much about the 19-zeros, the aughts they would call, and even still today, it's hard for me to imagine 2005. That was 12 years ago. My oldest child was born in 2005 was 12 years ago. My oldest daughter was born 2009. And that's 8 years ago. Going to be 9 years ago soon. Oh, wait a second. Am I doing my math right? No, my oldest daughter was born in 2007. Oh. I'm sorry. My oldest child was born in 2007 because I was like, no, wait, she's already 10. She's turning 10. She's 9 now and she's turning 10. But in December. But time goes by so fast now. I don't know. It just seems like yesterday, even though so many things have changed in my life. I guess that's part of the steadiness of being married and having children. Which I think is a wonderful thing about marriage and family life, is how you have a certain stability to your life. Did I say steadiness? Stability. The stability of life when you're married, you have a family, and then I mean, it was like the cutest thing, last year was this year, no? The years are just all melding together now. My local rabbi, he got married a little bit later in life, so he's a bit older than a lot of people in ultra-Orthodox communities would be at this stage in life. But he called me and he said, Rebbitzin and I, we're entering a new stage in our life. And I knew exactly what he meant was that his oldest grandchild got engaged, and I was there at the wedding, and before we know it, they'll be great grandparents, and the thing is, in our community, a lot of times, you could be a great grandparent by the time you're 60. But they got married a little later. Well, at least he did. Their ages are, I don't know exactly, but it seems like Revinson's quite a bit younger. I don't know exactly, but I don't mean to talk about their personal lives. Just the point is, but like I said, in our community, that's one of the great things, I mean, people, they complain, you put this on me, why do I have to have children so young when other people around me aren't doing it? But when you're in your 60s and you already have great grandchildren, it's just, I don't know, that's, I mean, I guess, I was 22 when I got married. So I'm not going to force my kids to get married if they don't want to. But I don't know. I have a feeling my oldest child is probably going to get married younger. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. I don't know if she's going to have kids right away. Maybe yes, maybe no. I mean, most likely, it seems that way. That's the trajectory her life is going in now. But it could change, and it's not my business so much, But I could be, if she's a mother by 19. That means that when she was born, I was 23, just before my 24th birthday. So, yeah, when I'm 42 or so, I could be a grandfather. And 60, 61, 62, great-grandfather, possibly. We don't know what God has in store. We don't know if things are going to continue the way they are that long. A lot of people seem to think they aren't, but I think we should just live life, And then, yeah, but be in my 80s, be a great-great-grandfather, and let's, like I heard that when Rav Elyashiv, Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha, was nifter, and he was, in the non-Hasidic community, the leading rabbi in Jerusalem. It should be noted, he wore a shtreimel, even though he was not Hasidic. The shtreimel has nothing to do with being Hasidic. But he wore a bekashin, a shtreimel, and a beard and payas, He davened Ashkenaz. I don't know. I don't think I davened Ishmael once, but I just peeked in there. I think actually once I davened there. And he also wore a talis Friday night, the Yerushalmi minhag. Also shows it's not necessarily a Hasidish thing or a Rebbish thing, But when he was nifter, so the sun is on the side. So when he was nifter, they said that the Israeli news made a big deal about him, not just and not even so much what someone the way someone described it was that secular Israelis learned about him because he had something over 200 living descendants, maybe more, 300-400, I'm not sure, and that was a big deal. I mean, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, an exponential number. And so that would, and people learned about him not necessarily because he was this leading rabbinical authority, but because he had so many living descendants, at the time of his death. And that was a big deal. And I remember, in Yerushalayim, there were a lot of people like that, the older people, even people they weren't even that old. And they had so many great-grandchildren, It was, I remember, and even people I know, in New York and so forth, and it's a tremendous sense of pride. I don't know. I think it's really beautiful thing, and so anyway, it's not what I really was talking about. I remember this vision. I remember in Jerusalem, and I told Sarah from Yitzchak, one of those. It was a couple where the husband, an older couple, and the husband, when the was nifter. Like, I don't know, the husband wanted to go to Tolsa Mitzchok, and the wife wanted to go to Saharan. It was some issues, but anyway, I used to eat in their house because a friend of mine was a nephew of theirs, something. A friend of mine from New York, and they were in touch with these relatives, and we would go there to, and they talked about their experiences in the Holocaust. You know, it was quite, but I would eat there quite often. You know, every few weeks we would go there for Shabbos meals, and then I just remember this one time, you know, walking home from shul, and like a bunch of kids came, Zaidi, you know, like 30 kids, you know, and like, you know, and my friend pointed it out, you know, this is just like a small fraction of his Einaklach. These were Ir Einaklach, you know, or maybe even Ir Einaklach, you know. Like, we asked him, you know, in that community there was a big Makubal. We looked up to him very much, and we used to eat in his house too. Reb Daniel Frisch was from the Brach, and we asked this Yid, we asked him, do you learn together with Reb Daniel? And he said, why should I? I'm 10 years older than him, you know. Just we didn't realize how young Reb Daniel Frisch was, you know, when he passed away, because he looked like ancient, you know. He looked like he was 200 years old, and he wasn't even 70 when he passed away. And so when we knew him, you know, he was in his 60s, because he had passed away maybe he was 70, maybe he was 72, but he looked a lot older than he was when, you know, that. But let's put these aside. That's not really the point what I want to talk about. I've been watching a lot of. I didn't realize what time it was. I wanted to listen to the sun in my eyes. Didn't look at the time. I wanted to listen to the Writer's Almanac. I always like to listen to that. But missed out on that. What I really wanted to talk about was, you know, I've been watching some videos. There's a fellow, he has a channel, The Scariest Movie Ever. He goes by his initials KJ. Nothing to do with Curious Joel, I don't think. And he talks about how Hollywood is so evil, and things that people would consider conspiracy theories. But it's interesting, you know, I watch all of these quote-unquote conspiracy theory videos, and it's interesting that all the things that these videos say are evil are things that the Hasidic community boycotts. Zionism, media, colleges, universities, all of these things that are just pointed out to be evil and pointless and stupid and wastes of money, and our community has been boycotting them for years. Now, I agree more or less with the views on Zionism. I did go to college, but I went to a Jewish college, an Orthodox Jewish college. One could almost call it a Haredi college, as much as it's possible to say such a thing. And I don't boycott the media, but I'm beginning to learn the wisdom of why I should. I mean, thankfully I didn't have to pay for college. I'm very tempted to get a master's degree, but I don't know if I want to spend money on that. I mean, is it going to help my career that much? I think most jobs that I would apply to would understand I have the equivalent of a master's degree. I mean, I do have on paper, even if it's not accredited, but recognition of my studies, which were from accredited institutions, after I don't know, I'm going to say, is it a postgraduate level or is it on an undergraduate level, but it was after my graduation. So I'm still getting these credits. Excuse me. So, I don't know, whatever you want to talk about that, but in general, usually most like the Reform and Conservative seminaries, when they give their smicha, they call it a master's degree. So I don't know why mine would not be. Whatever. Move that aside for now. Anyway, we're talking about, so we see how, like, we're saying college is a waste of money, Zionism, and media, also waste of money, media. So all of these things are boycotted by our community, and I'm beginning to learn the wisdom of that, of why we should be boycotting these things, and why it's maybe foolish for me to question things in the community. But on the other hand, I think it's better when you learn these things on your own, as opposed to just accepting them blindly. Like, I learned from experience why. And that's what I really want to talk about. So yesterday, finally got around to seeing last Sunday's Treehouse of Horror, on The Simpsons. And I'm thinking back to, like, what this guy KJ says on the scariest movie ever. But even without that, I was just totally and absolutely disgusted by this. And also, I was insulted, even though I'm not a Christian. I was insulted by the sacrilege against Christianity. Whether you want to say it's a microaggression against Christianity or a macroaggression, it's hard to say. But it was utterly depraved and insulting. And I'm really having a hard time. I davened somewhat this morning, put on tefillin, gonna finish my davening soon, but the davening really helped me overcome this, because I was absolutely sick to my stomach. I was very disturbed. Maybe it's good for me to talk it out. It gets out of my system. I don't know, but a lot of people be like, well, what's the big deal? And I think that's also, years ago I remember on The Simpsons, like, Bart told Lisa, no, watch the violence or else you won't become desensitized. And to a certain extent, I'm always feeling like, even though people have been saying recently, ever since episode 9, The Simpsons has gone south, but I see there's like a continuity all throughout that kind of defiles, in a sense, the whole canon of The Simpsons from this particular episode. I remember when I was a kid, I remember davening. I was like 14 years old. Please, Hashem, that The Simpsons should be on bis Mashiach vet kimmen, until Mashiach's going to come. We should still have new episodes of The Simpsons, and I'm always like regretting that. but I see it's like it seems like it's coming true, I mean, whatever. But like this episode just totally, utterly disgusted me, and it really is interesting how it began and ended with jabs at Christianity. That we're not as much in good fun and making statements the way Simpsons used to be. This was more sacrilegious, I think, and somewhat insulting. But I'm wondering, were they making a statement by at the beginning saying it's the Simpsons Easter special, and then ending with, I don't know if I want to mention what it was about, because some people would think, oh, it's just a funny cartoon, like Mystery Science Theory said, just repeat to yourself, it's just a show and I should really just relax. But they came out saying, this is going to disturb you. This is going to disturb you so much that they mentioned a show that I've never seen, thank God. Was it House of Thrones it's called? Game of Thrones. They said you're going to have to watch Game of Thrones just to calm down from watching. And it's interesting how it's almost like pointing from the whole. I mean, the thing is, I never liked gory movies. I always loved monster movies, but I didn't particularly like scary movies or gory movies. I certainly didn't like gory movies. I enjoyed some psychologically scary movies. A movie like Night of the Demon, brilliant, or sometimes called Curse of the Demon, Dana Andrews, brilliant film. That's a type of movie I like. Even though I've only seen it twice, maybe 3 times, but that's a great psychological thriller, and they threw a monster in just for good measure, and really the filmmakers didn't want a monster in it, but they threw it in there. And they also, the producers wanted a monster. They really wanted Ray Harryhausen to do it, but Harryhausen was busy with I think the 7th Voyage of Sinbad. It's the same thing. They wanted Ray Harryhausen to do the Giant Claw, and he was busy, I think at that time, with 20 Million Miles to Earth. And can you imagine? Because the Giant Claw is actually a pretty decent, well-made film. I mean, yeah, the science is silly, and the monster, of course, is what everybody makes fun of. But the acting is really good, and I don't know. I'm personally a fan of Mara Corday. I don't know. I think she's one of the. I shouldn't talk about that. I'm not trying to deny my masculinity here. I'm just trying to be tznius, trying to be modest, and not talk about things that are inappropriate. But she's very pretty. I don't think anybody can deny that. I don't know. I'll tell you a sad thing. I remember I asked my friend who we're going to see this week, Ron Adams. We'll probably see on Sunday at Chiller if we're going. I don't know if we're going to go yet, but we're planning. And he gets all of these old actors and actresses to come to their to Monster Bash. And I said, does Mara Corday come out and do these conventions? He said no, and he's tried to get her, but she just is so ashamed that she doesn't look today the way she looked 60 years ago. I mean, what does she expect? My meaning, she's healthy, she's fine, but she doesn't want to be seen in public. And it's really sad because, I mean, to me, this is also why, someone was saying, oh, look, the Hasidic community tries to make women invisible. And, I could admit and say that Mara Corday was very beautiful in the 1950s. And I would still be interested to talk to her today, not just because I want to, ogle her is it ogle or ogle? I don't know. As a ogle, I think is the word. I think it's ogle. As a sex object, it's because I'm interested in meeting these people who made these movies. I mean, I'm just like interested in meeting Bird-Eye Gordon. Has nothing to do with the way he looks. Obviously not. It just has to do with, it's interesting. I love the movies that he made, and it was so wonderful how he, wrote, produced, directed, did special effects. He did everything. He was a real auteur. He was, and he also really seemed to care about his movies. Like they weren't bad, And I told him that. I said, I appreciated how he really. It was obvious that he really cared about what he was doing. It wasn't, because some of these 50s B movies are really bad, Some of them are unwatchable, and some of his, I'll be honest, to me, some of his movies from the 70s I don't really care for, but his movies from the 50s, I really enjoy all of them. Once he gets to the 60s, it changes for me. But his 50s movies are really, all of them I loved. Even King Dinosaur, maybe even especially King Dinosaur. I mean, a lot of people don't like King Dinosaur, but I love dinosaurs, so. So this begs me to ask the question, about the media in general. Has it been like this KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever? Like, he talks a lot about Metropolis. He talks about how, like, the trends in the media that he sees and that a lot of people claim to find have been going on for years. How there have been either signs of the future, things that would, conspiracy theories will claim that there are elitists who know about things that the common people don't know about, but they put hints either in the media or in other places. There was a card game, I think, called Illuminati, and this thing is spooky because you look at these cards and you can find them online, and I think it's just like from the 70s or the 80s. I'm not sure. I think it's from the 70s actually, and it's filled with things. There's one picture that looks exactly like September 11th. Maybe even more than one that hint to September 11th. And other similar things like this. And there are claims that these all have to do with various occult practices and stuff. And a lot of people, they say they make these videos about like occult practices, and people say, oh, they're anti-Semitic because they attack the Rothschilds and things. And And the thing is like, if you really study history, you'll see, there was, we're familiar with Shabtai Tzvi and Jacob Frank, Yimach Shemam Zichron. But what we don't realize is that this, at the very least, the seeds that they planted are growing today. They're not wiped out. And I don't mean just like small groups like whatever, the Donme or whatever in Turkey. Talking about major mainstream, groups in the media and government, and I don't know much about the Rothschilds, but I never even heard of them. Even though Jewish, I never heard of the Rothschilds until I think maybe I was in high school when I first heard them even mentioned. And Rabbi Fishbane does tell one or two stories about Anshel Rothschild, and he always points out he was an Ehrlicher, he was a pious Jew, as opposed to his children who are not. His children already went off the derech, and it seems like they were maybe already influenced by the Sabbateans and the Frankists. So I don't know enough about them, and I don't know what's true and what's not true from what you hear on the internet. So it is what it is, but this episode of The Simpsons, so the third scene, it comes out, Lisa comes out in a tuxedo, which already is a little bit gender bending. And that, and she says, no one will be seated during the third act. And she said, this is going to be so disgusted. She goes out and says, this is going to be really disgusting. And it was. It really, really was. 37 minutes already. I just ramble on and on about nothing, don't I? So, and it really bothered me, this self-cannibalism story, leading to cannibalism story. And the strange thing about it is that KJ on his channel, The Scariest Movie Ever, he was talking, he said something once, I remember, he's like, don't think, oh, this is my show, Family Guy or The Simpsons or whatever, because it's not. And don't, and I kind of scoffed at that, but then I stopped watching Family Guy a long time ago. But and I'm tempted to watch The Orville, but I haven't watched it yet, and I don't intend to. It's a show that I probably, seeing the commercials, I probably would have been interested in, but knowing Seth MacFarlane, even though there's certain things I love about his shows, how he makes references to old shows and stuff. Again, all of this now is just making me think, has this been a trajectory from the beginning? Because obviously everybody knows, or anybody who studied this knows, that Lisa coming out with the tuxedo on was a reference to Frankenstein, where Edward Sloan, who plays the other doctor, the older doctor, the teacher, Frankenstein. I know he plays Van Helsing and Dracula. I don't remember in Frankenstein what the character's name was. But Edward Sloan comes out and says, you were warned. And the thing is, I watched Frankenstein, and I'm not shocked by Boris Karloff Frankenstein. I like it, I like Bride of Frankenstein much better. And I know that there's a lot of sacrilege and irreverence in Bride of Frankenstein, but I'm not as offended by it. Not sure why. And I don't think I've ever been so offended by The Simpsons. I mean, there are offensive episodes of The Simpsons, and some of them I only realized later. I mean, I realized this season, the first episode I found very disgusting, and then the other episodes I really liked. The Sad Girl I thought was brilliant, even though it was just basically a rehashing of Angry Dad, but with the roles changed. His Girl Friday. Changing the roles from the front page, actually doing it better, I think. Even really better than the play, and it's one of my favorite plays. Ben Hecht, one of my favorite writers, has been for a long time, even though I haven't read anything from him in a long time, and I haven't watched His Girl Friday in years. We kind of say that my daughter Raisy, we gave her an English name Rosalind, and we kind of joked that she's named after Rosalind Russell. Maybe it's a little bit true, but then, the other day we said something like that. I was like, well, how do you know we didn't name her after the moon of Uranus? But Miranda is also one of the moons of Uranus. And she sings. So, is this now in the earlier episodes of The Simpsons? Right from the beginning, that was also part of the thing when they made the Treehouse of Horror, was this nod to the original Frankenstein, the prologue to Frankenstein, of saying you're going to be scared by this, or don't complain, or don't send any nasty letters. I get nowadays people I don't think write letters, but they tweet. And I'm making a YouTube video about it, and I don't know if anybody from The Simpsons is going to see this. I doubt it. But was this the plan all along, to eventually get to a point where, it's just actually going to be so offensive, and the hope is that by that time we're going to be what was the word? I said it earlier in this video, desensitized from this type of depravity. I mean, and there's no lesson, like usually like in the original Treehouse of Horror, the one with the aliens, and it was based on the Twilight Zone, to serve man, which is brilliant, but everybody knows, you have to serve man, and then they're like, oh, it's a cookbook, and so then in the joke of The Simpsons was that in the end it wasn't a cookbook, and because of their prejudice, they missed out on something really great. And that's a deep lesson, But this, I don't see any redeemable quality other than just to... There's two possibilities why they made this episode. There's the simple of we want to do something so utterly shocking and see how far we can press the limits, the way Family Guy and South Park does. And have been doing for years, and I think I haven't really watched South Park or Family Guy in a long time, but as far as I know, I don't know if they've gone to this extent in such a senseless way. Like South Park, my recollections were generally any time they did something really disgusting, and they have done similar disgusting things, usually there was some message there that had some redeemable quality. Not every, I mean, there are a few that I can think of. I mean, to me, cannibalism is absolutely the most disgusting thing I can ever imagine. I mean, there are two things that really gross me out are cannibalism, and for some reason, I don't know why, but what really spooks me out is these stories of spontaneous combustion. Something about that also always bothered me. Anytime, these things are brought up in documentaries on A&E or History Channel or something, In Search of, or, this type of shows, I was always kind of, really grossed out by them, But, and the Bible talks about cannibalism as a punishment. Like this is something that will happen if people, go away from God. They'll be forced into this out of poverty. But the question is, is there something going on here that's not linked to poverty as much as it's, or is it? Will there be, in an apocalyptic setting, levels of poverty, and they're trying to desensitize us? I mean, that's the first thing, is that's just possibly it's just a shock value. But KJ from the scariest movie ever, he made a video claiming that no, the media is trying to desensitize us to this idea, and is trying to make it mainstream to the point where people will do things along these lines. And Alex Jones has been making claims of, although I don't really, I take anything he says with a grain of salt, but yeah, Alex Jones has been claiming that they're already introducing some aspects of cannibalism into our culture. And the question is, are they doing that to desensitize us to these things? Is that the net meaning? We've seen the depravity of society go down the past few years, where things that were once totally taboo and considered evil and abominable are now mainstream. Is this the next, maybe not the next step, maybe not next year, but maybe in 20 years, 25, 30 years, 40, 50 years, is that going to be? And is that part of this? I don't know. That's part of the thing that frightens me about this so much. disgust, not only but I'm happy that I'm still disgusted by it, and that I haven't been desensitized to it. Because it's just, to me, it's just absolutely disgusting and horrifying and disturbing. And I hope most people who watch this were disturbed by it and disgusted by it and not entertained by it. Because I was not entertained by it. But the thing that I could say is that it bothered me, it disturbed me, and I needed to figure out how to overcome these feelings psychologically. Not to not be disturbed, but just how to forget about it and move on and relax. Like they said and like that's why last night I tweeted something. I said I realized I learned a lot of Torah, but I need more Torah in my life. And yesterday I learned like 3 blot Gemara, 3.5 blot. I learned 3 Perkei Mishnayos that I do every day. Bli Neder, Be'ez Hashem. I learned, I think, 3 chapters of Tanakh. Plus I did the Chok L'Yisrael and all my other stuff that I learned. And then still I realized I could have more Torah in my life. And so last night when I was looking for, like I said, I don't have regular TV, but I do have internet, and I have Roku. And I usually, like, I'll put on something like Mystery Science Theater 3000 or some YouTube videos, something to get me drowsy till I fall asleep. And last night I was like, you know what, I'm going to watch Dabrut. And I was watching Reb David Gottlieb, Focus Inside. Who I used to go to his shiurim. I stayed in his house once, but he wasn't there, in Arno. And going to Reb David and watching Reb David, and I was like, okay, good. I'm getting some Torah, even though I heard some things and like, if I agreed with him 100%, like, I want to look more into the sources and discuss some of the statements that he made in this video I watched. But I was like, all right, I can calm down a little bit. And then when my wife finally came home, she came home really late last night, and for some reason the door was locked, which I didn't know why. And so I had to open the door for her, and then I told her how I was so disturbed by this from The Simpsons. Maybe it's cathartic to talk about it now, but then I daven the first part of Pesukei Zimra, Brachos Korbanos, the first part of Pesukei Zimra, and I said Shema and Avinenu, and I'm going to try to daven now while I'm driving. Finish all the rest of the liturgy, because I have to go to work. But recently, I've been davening up and not really feeling too spiritual in davening. And then this morning, since I was trying to deal with something, these mantras that we say, Hashem Melech, Hashem Molech, Hashem Yimlech, Nolam Poet, and also I signed up for something like to say 1 pasuk of Tehillim every day, even though I say plenty of other Tehillim and everything, but said Hashem Melech, Hashem Melech, Hashem Melech, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to let go, let God. Not that I'm giving up being disturbed about this, but I'm just going to try to be cleansed of it, you know. I'm going to go to the mikveh later today, and I want to just forget about this. When I said the Pitum HaKetoros, even though I said it pretty fast, I know like the Pitum HaKetoros, they said it's a schooler for Taras Mishpacha, for Taras HaMachshava, for cleansing the mind, and you know, the recognition that I need a spiritual practice like this to cleanse my mind. You know, and what does it mean bad thoughts? And what does it mean disturbing thoughts? And what does it mean to be, you know, bothered and disturbed? Now I realize, you know, I don't always say Kriya Shema L'Mita, and I usually don't say the bracha Mapil, because maybe it's a question of bracha L'Vatala. So I used to say it all the time, and I stopped saying it, and I'm thinking, you know, I want to start saying a Mapil again, because it talks about that, not to be bothered by thoughts, and it's a good spiritual exercise because it helps us, you know, to be cleansed. And then, like I said, I accept to say one pasuk of Tillim, even though I say other Tillim also, but like, for some reason I signed up for this thing, and the pasuk I was given was, the David Hashem Arvishi, Mimira, Hashem Ois Chayim Yefchad. And I realized Pachad is also part of this, meaning I shouldn't have Yira or Pachad from anybody but Hashem. And that's, you know, something that I have here, you know, from this, and that also helped me cleanse. So like it gave me, so I'm thankful that I was disturbed by this, so I could have the opportunity to find spirituality in the davening. That's one thing. And then and so I'm thankful for that. And I think this is something we can talk to other people about who are disturbed by other things today in society. When people are upset about politics and things, we should be able to sublimate that into being thankful for our spirituality, whatever our spirituality is, even negative spirituality, meaning things that upset us. Like I said, you know, we were taught in my group that I conduct a few times a week, spirituality group that I facilitate in the hospital where I work. Spirituality is whatever makes your life meaningful, and I venture to say that even if you hate your life is meaningful. Because I don't think animals run around loving their lives or hating their lives. They're just living. So, you know, there's that. And the gift of, you know, redemption, salvation, healing, whatever you want to call it. And this is another thing I translated yesterday for the Kalavar Rebbe. It's like his own son, Shafur Shlema, Moshe Ben Rezel. Major Shafur Shlema is incredible. Every day he's writing. And he was writing about the depravity of society today in sexual matters. And he was addressing homosexuality, but not, you know, not in a bigoted way. But rather, what he was essentially saying is that our society is so hypersexualized that people suffer from basically sex addiction that destroys their life, Meaning he was talking in a very practical way about the destructive nature of addictions, and it's really not much of a difference if it's a sex addiction, a drug addiction, alcohol addiction. All of these addictions destroy people's lives, and how people are willing to give up really greater pleasures just to have a temporary pleasure, And I see that in my life, and I suffer to a certain extent from this sickness, and I've discussed this somewhat, my personal fights with addictions, and I've seen, sometimes when I've had falls, and I was like, what, why did I waste this money? But then I see other people, like, they waste even, and like, is that going to happen to me? Meaning, it's a fear, meaning, if I don't stop now, if I don't seek help, if I don't stop, is it going to get worse and worse? And so maybe that could be the message of this, is the wake-up call. And maybe that's how we could redeem this episode of The Simpsons, to say, wake up before this happens to you. Don't be Homer Simpson. Don't be such a glutton that you eat yourself. That's the danger of laziness, because it was sloth and gluttony that led to his own destruction. And even though the 7 deadly sins are not part of the Jewish tradition, but we did discuss this in our spirituality group once, and how and pride also, it seems like, the deadly sins were there in this episode. And so maybe that's how it could be redeemed, that there is a lesson of, don't do this, don't fall into this trap, because it's going to destroy your whole life. So that's possible, and I hope it's not there to desensitize us. It's so easy to fall into a possibility of, and they could both be true, meaning there could be the nefarious and evil aspect of this. There could be just the plain shock, and all three could be true. And there could also be the possibility for redemption by learning a lesson. Meaning the shocking nature of this. And I remember I once spoke at a dedication of a rehab center in Richmond when I was the Rav there, and I came with a tallis and I blew a shofar. I brought a friend of mine with me, and we, or actually I met them there or something, I don't know, but I said, if I go up to heaven, you are there, and I descend to hell, you are there. It says in the Psalms, Psalm 139. No, 193. Psalms only goes to 150. 139. And Rabbi Nachman talks about this a lot. And what I said was that, we can learn things from addicts that we can't learn from other people. We can learn about the awesome power of God more. Makom Shabali Tshuva Omden, Ein Tzadikim Kumar Yachom Lam. Ein Tzadikim Kumar Omden. So, meaning we learn from, you know, from our mistakes, how the greatness of God, how He's there with us, even in the worst times, even in the darkest places. God is still there. We can find redemption, we can find salvation, we can find healing. So I'm thankful for all of these things. I'm thankful for all of these experiences because God had a plan to show me this. God wouldn't have let me see this if He didn't mean for me to see it, and that must be the answer, is because that I should read both of these, that I should read this from the Kalavar Rebbe and translate it so many other people could read it. A letter he sent to Jews in Brazil, but really it's a message for everybody. And then see this, and maybe that's the lesson. Maybe that's what's really going on here, or at some level, meaning that's why I had to see this, and hopefully, and it's interesting because yesterday I was also writing the forward. They have a rabbinical roundtable. And I reached out to them. I said, I think my perspective is going to be different than other rabbis that you're going to have there. And so I want to reach out. And there was questions about the Western Wall controversies. And I pointed out how Rabbi Yeshayahu Lebovich, Professor Yeshayahu Lebovich, who I had the honor of ministering to his anacle and getting to meet him and work with him at certain times in my life. Very chashuv his anacle. Someone who I respect very highly. So Professor Yeshayahu Leibowitz, I guess is how he pronounced it. He said that the Western Wall is an idol. And I said, that might be a certain level of hyperbole. But I said, certainly when and I make videos about this Women of the Wall, and my message to the Haredim who are fighting the Women of the Wall to really stop, when you, if you're yelling and screaming at people, you've turned it into an idol. You've turned a place that's adjacent to the holiest place in the world into an idol. And so the lesson there is also that, something holy could be used for holiness, or it could be used as an idol. And the same thing with many other things in the world. Idolatry is essentially, how do we use something? Someone asked me yesterday, is it... I didn't really address this question, but this question came up, is it idolatry to be a fan of popular culture and things? I didn't really address it, I remember, but then it came up again, and so the same thing, meaning, and so KJ on the scariest movie ever, he's right. Don't idolize these things. And it's interesting, I was listening to Glenn Beck, and he said, he wants to boycott Disney. He's upset at Disney because they've politicized sports. Even though he's not a sports fan, like ESPN, all these things. And then, and he said, "But I'm not ready to give up Star Wars." And to me, it's to a certain extent, it's almost like, I'm upset why Disney bought Star Wars. It almost feels like, obviously they didn't steal Star Wars. I think one of my kids asked, why did Disney steal Star Wars? I said, they didn't steal it. They paid $4 billion for it, and they made it back with The Force Awakens, and they really made really good movies. But again, is there something in there that we have to be aware of and be careful of, not to fall into traps? And is there something redemptive in it that we can grow from? And I think it's true with just about everything in the world. Even we're forbidden to do sins. I'm not saying we should go do sins in order to redeem them. That's the Sabbatean Frankist heresy. But part of the human nature is that we do sin, but hopefully we don't sin that bad, but can we find redemption from sin? Can we, can we find healing? Can we find salvation? And I'm not, and the fascinating thing, like we saw here with the Kalavar Rebbe's writing this week, it was not about the afterlife. It's not about heaven or hell. It's about this life, meaning your life is better in this world when you're not an addict. And the point of Torah, it doesn't say low balance. I got an email, low balance. It doesn't say low balance. The point of Torah is really to rescue us from these things. And some people it doesn't work for them, and I don't think it's their fault. I think it's the fault of whoever taught them. I think it's the fault when people just teach Torah as a job and not as a mission. Watching Glenn Beck, old Glenn Beck yesterday. He was answering questions about Mormonism, and he was making a lot of comparisons to Judaism. He said that the sacred garments that Mormons wear are very similar to the yarmulke and tzitzis that Orthodox Jews wear. I sent that to my wife, and she's like, no. And she grew up Mormon, but she was not in the temple. Although she said she did used to do baptisms for the dead. So I'm not quite sure about all of that. But anyway, it's really late. I got a daven. But then he was talking about missions, and he's like, when most kids are, trying to find themselves, he's like, these kids, they really find themselves. Because if this is not what they believe, they're going to drop it. And if it is what they believe, it's going to solidify them. Me, I went to Israel, to Yerushalayim. I went to Eretz Yisrael. I tried to stay away from Israel. Even then, I went to Eretz Yisrael. I went to Yerushalayim, to Jerusalem, to the land of Israel, to the Holy Land, the Holy City, for a year and a half. And my, 17, 18, 19, that part of my life. I guess I was 18 already. It was just around my 18th birthday, I think, when I went to Yerushalayim. And that helped to solidify me. I remember they told us in yeshiva in high school, they said, we want you to go there, so not to make you religious, but that, when you have something that's molded, pottery, you mold pottery, and then you when you're done, you want it to be solidified, you put it in the kiln. He said Eretz Yisrael is the kiln, meaning we've molded you and you've molded yourself over these years, and now it's time to go into the kiln and decide, is this what you want for the rest of your life? And although my life has changed since then, but it certainly was a good thing that I went and did that. I still have, I mentioned at the beginning of this video, memories from that time in my life, which is so amazing to think that it's over 15 years ago now. And I see this New York skyline, and I remember when I came back, because September 11th happened when I was in Yerushalayim, and when I came back, to see the skyline without Twin Towers. And I had visited the Twin Towers once. I'd been on top of there once, So, So Glenn Beck said, I'm not trying to make you a Mormon, but what I am saying is, like, whatever you believe, you should have your kids do that when they turn 18, go and do something similar. And I guess that was my equivalent. Although I can see, Chabad, they go put tefillin on people. My main, there was an article in the forward, check your privilege. Don't, with Chabad, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? I mean, the thing is, there was a story. My Zeta, he was in the airport in Israel. My Zeta went to Israel, also to Israel. I don't know. So, and there was this Chabad guy who was like, oh, did you put on tefillin yet today? You want to put on tefillin? And he's like, I did put on tefillin, because my Zayda put on tefillin every day. And like, this guy wouldn't believe him until he opened his suitcase and showed him his tefillin. But, I mean, I wore tefillin. I don't have the marks anymore. It's almost 2 hours now since I put on tefillin. It's hard to believe. So I couldn't show that, I remember or Samech, we're like, present stripes, like the marks that's still on your arm a few minutes after you wear the tefillin, But hour and 20 minutes. What is wrong with me? Goodness. So I think, these type of things are iconoclastic. We got to break our idols. We got to break our strongholds. I've heard some Christian preachers talk about strongholds. We got to return to God and return everything to God. Our whole life to be dedicated to God. And that doesn't mean to be, like on The Simpsons said this week, a religious weirdo. It's really just the opposite. It's like Rabbi Bart Sadok says, religion is more about man than it is about God, and that's how God wants it. And that's a brilliant, brilliant quote. Meaning that, this questionnaire thing, whatever I did for the forward, they asked, are there any particularly Jewish values? And my answer was no. There used to be. But Christianity and Islam spread our values to the world, including to heathens and pagans. I didn't say that, but it's true. Meaning our values are now the world's values, thanks in the most part to Christianity and to a certain extent to Islam. They used to be and to America, really. America's really the main force. England and America are probably the two main forces that spread Torah values to the world. And I don't mean Shabbos and Kashrus. Those are our peculiar practices, but those are not values. The values of those things are the same universal values that anybody has with their culture or religion. We value things from the past and so forth. We could say that's not a particularly Jewish value. It's a particularly Jewish practice, but it's an expression of universal value. I talked a lot about a lot of things today, but it's interesting. We hear with Lech Lecha, which comes right after Noach, but we tend to associate with Lech Lecha, even though it's really more of a Noach story, the story of Abraham smashing the idols. We all know the story. I'll probably talk about that today. And work. That's last week I did the Joe DiMaggio card story, and in a sense that's really a message of this Alan Twan. Bethlehem and Alan Twan, Reading. So, just reading what it says on Schwartzy's Trucking. That's what they call my mom, Schwartzy. Roger Schwartz. I don't need my sunglasses anymore. But that's, really the message there, of being the iconoclast. And so I think it's appropriate that we talk about these things now in Parshas Lech Lecha. Now we can really go and Lech Lecha. Lech Lecha means go to yourself. Go to talk about finding yourself. And Jimmy from Bright Insight, he said something recently. I forgot who he was quoting. He said, whatever the universe is made of, and the essential ingredients in the universe, that's what we are. And it's true. And like he said, if you believe in God, so then God is in you. Not that you're worthy of worship, but that, meaning, and so when you find God, you find yourself. And when you find yourself, you find God. That sounds like something that might sound somewhat Taoist. I don't know if that's in the Tao Te Ching, but but this whole story of finding yourself, I think it's really that's what means Lech Lecha means go to yourself, and not just go for yourself, but go to yourself. Maybe that's going to be my drasha today. And the thing is, in a certain sense, once you smash those idols, that's when you're ready to go to yourself. Once you've been through the fire, that's when you're ready to go to yourself, to make that pilgrimage, that inner pilgrimage. Shir Lamalos, Shir Hamalos, the pilgrim songs going up. Song to the Ascension song, the pilgrim song. And it's interesting, it says, the first Mishnah in Yevamah says there are 15 that pater their tsaros, and one of the Hasidic Rebbes, I forgot who he said, that's the 15 pilgrim songs of Shir Malos. And now it's winter, and we're saying those Shabbos afternoon. A lot of folks have a minhag like that. And it's Lech Lecha, go to yourself. Vayera, and then you'll see. Sarah, you'll have a life of nobility. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's not just the Achrei Mos Kedoshim memory. And Noach, the gracious Noach. At first, you gotta calm down. Lech Lecha, go to yourself. Vayera, then you'll see. Chayesara, a life of nobility. All right. Well, God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll be in touch. All right.